Since 2018, all motorcycle kit is classed as personal protective equipment, and it is to our benefit. It's not some bureaucrat interfering. It actually gives us a chance to find out just how protective something that says it's protective is. But not everything out there, despite it being a legal requirement, not everything is actually certified. Now, you've got to have seen loads of the ads that keep popping up on Facebook, on social media, and stuff for sale on Amazon and eBay, for instance. There's some great looking deals out there, like these leathers that cost £215 from Amazon. But are they any good? Are they actually safe? Will these protect you?
Hello, my name's Paul Varnsberry, and I'm involved in helping companies to meet their legal obligations under the Personal Protective Equipment Regulations, with a specialism in motorcycle clothing. I've been involved in developing standards for motorcycle clothing since February 1984, and I've been involved in the formation of the European standards since the very first meeting almost 30 years ago in August 1991.
So Paul, obviously bought these off Amazon. We know they're not tested. We're curious about what you think of them. So first time you've seen them, I've tried them on. They fit well. They felt pretty good. They gave me a fair bit of confidence putting them on. They feel like a solid construction, but as an expert, what's your first impressions?
Well, firstly, John, thanks for inviting me along to cast an eye over these. First impression is actually quite favourable. At first glance, the leather appears to be quite substantial. It's supple, but it's quite thick, and it's a sort of leather you'd expect to fare pretty well in a crash at high road speeds or on the racetrack. That's visual impression. Sometimes visual impressions can be fooled. That's why we test. Looking across the garment, I've had a look inside already. We're able to access inside the garment through a very convenient zipper point just here. This enables us to look at seam constructions and see how many rows of thread are holding it together. That might be a little bit difficult for the camera, but I can see 3 rows of stitching there holding the black leather on the back to the white leather. So you have one exposed row of stitching and at least one, possibly 2 rows of concealed stitching, so that if the thread on top is abraded in a slide along the road, the thread underneath holds the structure together. If there was only 1 row of stitching holding the suit together, it could potentially fly apart and immediately open up the wearer to the risk of injury from the road. And going along with the same theme, this on the arm, this white strip, it's only stitched on a raw edge. Now, if that was a structural seam with green joining white, that would be potentially very dangerous. This is a high impact, high abrasion zone right just here. And if that thread was abraded, it could open up, and again the forearm would be touching the road like that. However, this is an overlay. The white stripe is on top of the green leather and the green joins to the black. That's certainly the impression from looking inside the suit. So very favourable in terms of materials and construction so far, but testing is always the final arbiter.
And that's something I think, a lot of people might think, well, why should I care? Now, everything legally that you buy, every piece of motorcycle clothing that you buy in this country should now, well, throughout Europe, should be certified.
That's correct, and that's been the case since 21st of April 2018. Motorcycle clothing was brought within the scope of the PPE regulation. It's now mandatory to test and certify motorcyclist clothing, gloves, footwear. And
I guess an excuse, well, we've seen, you actually commented on the Amazon listing where we bought these from, saying that have these been tested? And I believe the company had their reasons for not testing them.
Well, they came out with the absolutely outrageous and entirely inaccurate statement that it costs £42,000, 42000, to test one colour of leather. That's just complete nonsense.
All the names throughout motorcycling, they're all testing their kit.
Yeah.
Some of them are quicker than others, but they're all doing it. They're all having to pay these bills. So are they? In most cases, we haven't seen the price go up for the consumer. So surely it can't cost 42 grand.
Well, of course it doesn't. To test one suit like this, in this design, it would cost around £1,200. That's everything, from collar to ankles, and from cuff to cuff.
And that's including, is that abrasion, burst, everything?
Abrasion, seam strength, tear resistance, impact protector pockets, the fact that they are sufficiently strong to hold the impact protectors in place, ergonomics and fit, everything, about £1,200.
Yeah.
Now, that would be for one colour of suit, and if the manufacturer runs other colours of this quality of leather, they can still use the same data for abrasion, resistance, seam strength, tear strength across all colours.
Okay.
So they would test one colour and that would cover their whole palette.
Yeah.
And all their seams and everything. So as long as they use common materials and manufacturing methodology across their range, that test data, that £1,200 spent, would also cover their jackets and trousers, for example. Right. They wouldn't need to test those again for the performance of the leather if they're using the same leather and they're stitching it together in the same way.
Yeah.
Where the costs come in is with what's called chemical innocuousness, what I refer to as the hidden danger, because this seems quite robust. Someone would buy the suit and they would feel that if they were had the misfortune to have an accident, then they could feel fairly safe in it, that it would stay intact, and at first impression, that's what they would feel. But the hidden danger, chemical innocuousness, is what chemicals have been used to colour this leather, and also the lining. And there are a whole panel of additional tests that have to be done, not just for motorcycle clothing, not just for protective clothing, but for things like watch straps, wallets, handbags. These all also need to be tested to protect consumers who come into contact with materials, to ensure those materials don't contain compounds or release agents that can cause skin irritation or some very serious health issues, such as, well, cancer obviously being one of the most fearful ones. And recently phthalates in rubbers and plastics have been added to the list, and there are very serious concerns over phthalates because they affect the reproductive system and they can cause radical changes in hormones, they can reduce sperm count, and there are very serious concerns about the impact phthalates in our environment can have on the human reproductive system.
It would be easy to look at this and think that we're just finding ways to put this suit down. But it's fair to say, isn't it, that anything you buy, if you walk into your local motorcycle dealer and buy one of the branded pieces of kit now that has CE approval, let's say for a set of leathers, I think you and I both think a set of leathers should be CE AAA, the top rated of the 7992
Certainly for track day use or competition.
Yes, for track day use, because that's going to give you the best protection potentially. Yeah. But it's fair to say, isn't it, that anything you buy there will have that AAA. That'll have to have been through this innocuous test.
It will.
Yeah.
But I don't believe it's the brands that should be paying for that chemical innocuousness testing.
Okay.
The company that made this suit should be paying its suppliers for those. Shouldn't be paying for those results.
Yeah.
Their suppliers should be doing that work, because the cost of chemical innocuousness testing, which is £612 for a colour of leather, that costs this clothing manufacturer £612, even if he's only using 500 feet of green leather every year. The tannery, it costs them £612 if they're producing 250,000 feet of green leather every year. So obviously, amortising costs, it makes sense for the supplier to fund it.
Yeah.
And if they have to put a few cents on the price of a material, it wouldn't even be that really, depending on the volumes involved.
Yeah.
But if they have to put a few cents on the price of a material, it's saving the clothing manufacturer hundreds.
So it really is fair to say, that comes down to bargaining from any manufacturer of what they're buying from where and everything like that. But it's fair to say £1,200 to test that suit. Now, that testing doesn't include impact protectors, does it? Because they should be bought as already CE approved protectors. And generally companies are buying, for instance, D3O protectors that have already been rated, or they'll be buying them from a supplier. Now in in the listing, this one says it comes with removable CE approved protectors. Now I've taken the back protector out.
Very thoughtful of you.
Yeah, save you fishing around in there. So what's your finding?
Well, firstly, this back protector, It has stamped on it EN 1621-2 2003. The latest version of the standard, as we stand here in 2021, is EN 1621-2 2012. So this is the very first version of the back protector standard when it was first published in 2003.
Yeah.
So it's way out of date already. Any impact protection in motorcycle clothing bought now should be approved to the latest version of the impact protector standards.
Is that a legal requirement?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so that is not that cannot be classed as a CE approved. It's not like, oh well, you know, fair enough, they've got to use the ones they had left, especially not when it's that far out of date. That cannot be claimed to be a CE approved protector.
If this suit was going in now for 17092 testing and certification, it could not be certified with this back protector.
Okay, and I can't say how that would perform, but it certainly doesn't feel like the performance you get from a
I have seen comparable products in the past. Once in a legal case which Trading Standards brought, that was several years ago. More recently, in January 2020, an article that I helped Motorcycle News with, where a similar product failed testing when subjected to an impact of 8 joules. Now, the European standard for back protectors impacts with 50 joules. 50.
So a proper back protector, level 1, the lowest standard of back protector, there's level 1 and level 2.
Yep.
The lowest standard of legal requirement of back protector now would stop 50 joules of energy being passed to your spine.
It would attenuate the transmitted force when impacted with 50 joules. 50 joules is the constant.
Yeah.
Whether level 1 or level 2, it's impacted with 50 joules.
Right.
Then what they do is they measure the transmitted force behind, and that that determines level 1 or level 2.
Okay.
What I'm saying to you is, if you impact this component with 50 joules, then, well, I don't think a test house would do it. They'd be fearful of breaking their very expensive equipment.
Okay.
So I would probably start impacting this at 8 joules, which is the level that products like this have previously started to fail at. It does have something denser built into the middle, but I wouldn't expect that to go very much further. Testing is the final arbiter, as I've said already.
So let's have a look at the other stuff then. The other. So I've taken out one side. That's one of the.
Let me just show this. The hip protector. Everything's CE approved. There's no marking on that at all. That's just a piece of foam. So
you've also got down there the shoulders, elbows and knee protectors. Now they're a bit of a mixed bag as well.
Well, they are, because this is the, well, K/S would be knee and shoulder. Yeah, this is marked as EN 1621-1, 1997, which was the first version of the standard. So this is an antique. It should be on Antiques Roadshow. The standard was updated in 2012. So this is a very, very old protector.
So that legally can't be called a CE approved protector.
Well, it was, and you can't take that away from it. But if you were putting this into
assuming
a garment,
it is a real one,
assuming it is a real one, we'll have it tested. We'll find out. If you were putting this into a garment now that you were having certified to 17092, you'd be told no. It's called the state-of-the-art principle. You use the latest version of the standard to assess the product for certification. That's also enshrined in the PPE regulation. So that couldn't be used.
Okay.
It's too old. Moving on. What we have here, EK, so elbow or knee, 1621-1 Type A, so that's the smallest size, part number. Here we go, on the back here. 2012. So this has actually been certified to the latest version of the standard. Level 1, T+, T-. So what they're saying is this protector has been tested at ambient conditions and after exposure to high humidity and also at high and low temperatures. And finally, this I imagine is supposed to be the shoulder protector. Yes, it's marked as an S, configuration S. And what do we have here? 2012 again. And level 1, T+, T-. I know one thing you remarked to me about earlier, John, from your trying the suit on previously, was that the the sleeves are very loose at the bottom. And this is one of the tests that's actually done on motorcycle clothing. It's called restraint, which is resistance to displacement from the area of the body that the garment is intended to protect. And sleeve cuffs is the critical one that's actually dealt with in that way. You reported, and I think you've got some imagery of this, that the wrist cuff will travel a long way up your forearm before it stops.
Yeah, I got it up to a good way past a gauntlet glove would cover.
I mean, the protectors, if they're present, they would help in some ways to prevent that. But even so, in the testing, a test cone will be fitted inside, and what they will do is they will pull the test cone through under a certain load, and the cone cannot move out of the wrist by more than a prescribed distance prescribed in the standard. That's sort of replicating in reverse the sleeve riding up, the cone being pulled forward. I can show it quite easily here, and I'm sure you'll be able to show it in your images as well. I can just put my hand inside the sleeve like that. Now, that should fit snugly around my wrist, but you can see there's an awful lot of spare room there. Even if I allow a little bit for comfort, there's still a lot of room there. And I can just go, and my hand is free.
Yeah.
So work that in reverse. If you go down the road on your forearm, that could pull up, and if it pulls up by more than the length of the cuff on your gloves, you are in danger of having your arm touching the road.
Yeah. You mentioned when we were chatting before that's something that testing shows up.
Yes.
So that this could it could turn out to be quite well constructed, but if they'd done that testing,
yes,
it would find things like this that would help them make it safer for the person who's buying it.
No one knows. I don't know everything. No one knows everything. And some clothing manufacturers, particularly manufacturers in Asia, for whom these standards are completely alien, foreign, can I say, there's still stuff they can learn. And what you've picked up on there is a perfect example. Quite often in the factories, the people I talk to when I'm out there talking to factory personnel, they ride scooters in short sleeves and short trousers. Motorcycle clothing to them is a complete unknown. They don't have the first-hand experience we have in the West.
Yeah.
So something like this would not occur to them.
Yeah.
So when the information is given to them, they pick it up very, very quickly.
Yeah. And of course, a large proportion of what we're buying from many of the big names has been made in factories probably reasonably close to this. I mean, I bought this from Amazon, UK seller, but the shipping came straight from Pakistan. It was in Lahore in Pakistan, and it came straight here quite quickly. So impressive shipping, but it's clearly coming straight from there.
And there are a lot of companies doing this at the moment. I know of, I think, eight companies who are targeting competition riders and track day enthusiasts, and they're using social media to spread the awareness of their brands. They're going on to track day Facebook pages, that sort of thing, and promoting their products. And they're doing the same thing. And for the customer, it looks great because they can get either a made-to-measure or an off-the-peg suit, and they're not paying for the profit margins through the traditional supply chain. It's almost direct from factory to the consumer, with perhaps a bit of agency commission for whoever in the UK is facilitating the purchase. And that's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But the rules apply to them the same as they do to the major brands who are out in the factory developing the products, bringing them over and selling them through your local retailer. So the rules apply, and consumers need to be aware of this. They need to be aware of how motorcycle clothing is being tested, how it's certified. They need to be aware of the process, the information, so they can make an informed purchasing choice. If they want to go with something direct from the factory, absolutely fine. If they know what the product has done in testing, they've got that information, they can compare like for like.
I think that's the key point, because I was sitting here thinking, well, it's personal choice. What if their personal choice is to buy direct from factory and not have to pay for all this testing and everything, which would actually isn't that expensive. But if they don't, it comes down to knowing what you're buying. You've always said this whenever we've done work before, haven't you, that it's the point of testing is to keep saying something's safe and prove that it's safe, prove what it will do. And you're taking that risk potentially, aren't you, of I suppose people might argue, well, I know somebody who's got that suit and they crashed in it and it survived well. So haven't you then got an argument for saying, well, why bother paying all that money when you can buy something straight from the factory for 215 quid?
Oh, I can quote you a case there, and it was a legal case, so I can't name names. But it involved the police. A police rider was equipped with a suit, a textile suit from a well-known brand, a few years ago now, so no one that you possibly be aware of now. But a well-known brand, textile suit, and it was bought on the basis of previous experience.
Yeah.
The suit had been very, very good. In the intervening period, the brand in question had moved factories, and the suit went from being quite okay to being not okay at all. And the police officer was injured. Okay. Case settled out of court with confidentiality agreements.
Oh, right.
So, there's that, because this might be okay, but in 6 months or a year's time, if their quality control isn't up to par, then you might find someone buys another example of this suit from the same source, and it's not quite as good. There's that risk to it.
I guess, and there we're saying, for companies that are complying with the legislation, they're under strict rules of quality control, supply chain. It does cover the entire supply chain, doesn't it? That's the whole point of it. So if something's rated legally, it must be the same down the line. Now, obviously, we could get into an argument of that might not happen, but then there are official bodies that should check, or increasingly check that these things are being complied with. And by skipping all that, you have no guarantee whatsoever that somebody has put that together with the thoughts of your safety in mind.
The whole industry's got to get into a regulatory mindset.
Yeah.
Because in the regulation, it sets out the responsibilities for the manufacturer, the importer, the distributor, and the retailers have the same responsibility as distributors. If any of them sees a product that they feel there's something wrong with it, it doesn't meet the requirements of the legislation, if it was tested it might fail, they have a legal responsibility, an obligation to do something about it. Not wave it off, let it go through. So a retailer, if he looks at something in his shop and he believes that even though it's CE marked, there's something wrong here, they have a duty to check it out.
Okay.
And if necessary, to take it off sale and to report it to trading standards.
So the legislation is putting in multiple layers of people keeping a lookout for your safety.
Everyone's checking everyone else's work in the supply chain above them.
Yeah. In what you do in your job, you assist companies in working with massive test houses. And we're not talking about a place that tests just a motorcycle. They're testing worldwide market products, aren't they?
Yes.
For everything to ensure they're safe for people to use, safe and suitable for use. Now, this company was maybe they were misinformed. This company believes apparently that it costs £41,000 to have a suit tested. We're going to pay to have this suit tested. With your help, and thanks to you, that we'll be putting this through an internationally recognised, completely independent test house to have this suit tested for innocuousness and abrasion resistance and burst resistance, aren't we?
Yeah, I have confidence it will pass in those respects. The chemical innocuousness, we can't do everything because it is quite expensive to test the whole thing.
Yeah.
You're into azo dyes and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons and all sorts of other long names. But what we can do is we can run a cross-section of tests, some indicative testing, to see how this product would fare. And of course the question then comes, if we can do it, why can't the manufacturer? Because Bennett's isn't in the market of selling clothing, but it's doing this as a service to its viewers and members.
So next step, I guess, we'll package it up, send it off.
We will indeed.
So Paul, we've got the leathers back from our notified body. Our notified body is technical speak for a testing house, an independent testing house, and these are the companies that test stuff for CE certification.
That's correct. We've got them back, and I think it's important firstly to stress that the suit was not put through a full type examination process. That's not Bike Social's job. That's the job of the manufacturer or importer, and it wasn't the purpose of what we wanted to do. What we wanted to do was get an indication of how this suit would fare if the manufacturer or importer, the person who should be doing this work, was to do as they are legally required and put the product through type testing. That's what we did. It also means the supplier can't point to the Bike Social article and claim that it proves that their product has a certain status. So we didn't want to give them the ability to misrepresent. Back to the results though, and the leather fared extremely well. The materials and the constructions, in fact, could readily form the basis of an EN 17092 Class AAA or even an EN 13595 Level 2 garment. Just looking through the results here. And garments in the plural, not just one suit, because if the company uses the same materials and manufacturing methodology across a whole range of garments, suits, jackets, trousers. Again, all the indications are there, subject to completing the full range of tests. We only did some very brief indicative testing, that it could meet EN 17092 Class AAA, the highest level of that particular standard, and potentially even the much higher requirements of EN 13595 Level 2.
Wow.
The professional use standard. I mean, there are certain caveats there, but the materials are good.
The potential is there.
The potential is there.
We are not saying that product meets those requirements. But
certainly not.
It certainly has the potential.
Not on the basis of the very limited testing that we did. We can't say that. And it's not our place to do so. It's the manufacturer's responsibility to generate that information. So, all good so far. On the negative side, the lining was found to be of very poor quality and it tore easily. It even tore as the lab technician was just handling the suit to harvest test specimens for the other tests. So, a cross for that one. And the biggest concern, however, is the impact protection components. The back protector was subjected to a graduated scale of impacts. We didn't go straight in at the 50 joules. Rather than wreck the machine, because we had suspicions about the back protector, they started at 8 joules, then 12 joules, then 16 joules, then 20 joules. Now, at 16 joules, and bear in mind the requirement in the standard is 50, at 16 joules it was on the cusp of failing. At 20 joules it failed. So at 40% of the test severity stipulated in the standard, the back protector failed.
So not only is that back protector not certified correctly, it doesn't have the correct markings on it.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, because we bought that, we noticed that before we sent it for testing, didn't we? We were like, well, this is already not a legitimate protector, but we were like, this doesn't seem like it's going to be right. That is a dangerous item.
It's a fake.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
It's simply a fake.
Yeah. And what you can see also is they tested at 30 joules, having found the fail point between 16 and 20 joules. They impacted at 30, and it's just punched a hole straight through it.
Yeah.
That is an unsafe product.
Yeah, that's... Okay.
The hip protectors was the same story. The impact energy is 50 joules again. The transmitted force requirement is 35 kilonewtons. That's a maximum. Lower is better, once again, on transmitted force. 84 was the result. Single strike, nothing above 50 kilonewtons, 90. So getting on for double the single strike permitted maximum.
That's a lot going through. The back protector seems to scare me more.
Of course.
But then broken hips, pelvises are not.
None of it's pleasant, and no impact protection can absolutely guarantee that you won't sustain an injury. But the fact is, With the standards, you've got a minimum or two minimum levels of performance, level 1, level 2. At least you know you're getting a product that has been evaluated and is fit for purpose.
Yes.
These aren't.
So, is there any reason they couldn't have their kit tested?
None whatsoever. They're required to have it tested.
Yeah.
Either the factory can do it in Lahore, Pakistan, or Eviron Leathers in Essex can do it here in the UK. One of them has to take responsibility, either the manufacturer or the importer.
Yeah.
They are economic operators in the supply chain, and they are the two to whom primary responsibility falls to get the product tested and certified.
I bought these through Amazon, and we've found these on eBay and on the company's own website through Google. They are the store. And I know we were talking about this, saying, does companies like Amazon and eBay have a responsibility for those products being sold? But I think your best analogy was that it's Amazon in this case is more like Blue Water or Lakeside. It's more like the shopping centre, isn't it, rather than the shop contained?
To a degree.
Okay.
If you've got the shopping centres and you've got the owners of the shopping centres,
Yeah.
you know, the pension funds, the financial institutions who own these big shopping centres, they're providing premises. I don't see that you can hold them accountable for what gets sold in those premises. You know, if someone is selling a product that doesn't meet legislation, that's on the shop, not on the owner of the shopping centre.
Yeah.
They're a landlord.
Yes. I've just been looking at my notes, and we've been speaking to Alan Murray, the CEO of the British Safety Industry Federation as well, and he was saying that the legal status is still somewhat unclear, but it is being looked at because they are economic operators earning money from the transaction, exactly as you say. Shortly after filming this, I had a message back from Alan Murray, CEO of BSIF. Now, he had a response from the Office for Product Safety and Standards. They had reviewed and advised that this particular product is marketed by a seller based in the UK, and it is sold and distributed by a third-party seller. In this instance, Amazon are purely operating as a marketing platform, and under product safety legislation, they are not deemed to be an economic operator. They are also able to avail themselves of the innocent publication defence under e-commerce regs unless they have been informed that the content on their platform is illegal. Where a product is fulfilled by Amazon, sold by Amazon, or made by Amazon, they may be deemed to be an economic operator, and thus their status will change, and they have duties and responsibilities in relation to these products. Now again, we're not focusing specifically on Amazon with this content. It's simply that that is where these leathers were bought, and we needed to get the full background information on the situation. We actually spoke to Amazon, and in a way I'd say with a company that big, it's fair when I went to them asking their opinion on it, it was clear they didn't necessarily understand the legislation as it stands. But to be fair, motorcycling is a relative niche when you're on a company as huge as Amazon, so I wouldn't expect a very helpful and a media relations officer to know that immediately. So I've got the note here. An Amazon spokesperson did say, safety is a top priority at Amazon, and we want customers to shop with confidence on our stores. The item in question has been removed. Now, that item is actually still there. Just as one example, we're not picking on Amazon. We're simply saying that's where we bought this. So as an example there, it's the same thing when you look elsewhere on some of the other platforms. But for example, looking on Amazon, I searched for motorcycle leathers. And the first page, I couldn't find anything that indicated anything had been correctly certified. And I know you've posed the questions to some of these sellers, haven't you, asking them, and that doesn't go very well, does it?
Well, on Amazon, normally it's not the sellers who respond; it's customers or just normal consumers who are responding. My questions are targeted at the vendor.
Yeah.
I'm asking them, is it certified? They don't respond, most of them; they just ignore it.
Yeah.
And the information that comes back just shows how much confusion there is in the consumer's mind. They simply don't understand.
Now, Amazon did add that a further investigation is underway and we will take the appropriate action as identified. Third-party sellers are independent businesses and are required to follow all applicable laws, regulations and Amazon policies when listing items for sale in our store. Finally, we have proactive measures in place to prevent suspicious or non-compliant products from being listed, and we monitor products sold in our stores for product safety concerns. When appropriate, we remove a product from the store, reach out to sellers, manufacturers and government agencies for additional information or take other actions. If customers have concerns about an item they purchased, purchased, we encourage them to contact our customer service directly so we can investigate and take appropriate action. And I think, as you've said, people often don't realise that they're buying non-compliant personal protective equipment. And clearly, it's not that simple of addressing the fact that there is a lot of non-compliant or potentially non-compliant stuff. Maybe one way would be that it is a rule that the certification has to be shown in the listing. And if it's not shown, that would be easier for anybody who understands it to say that certificate's not right if it's not correct. But for all the legitimate selling, we should say it doesn't mean everything for sale is non-compliant.
No.
It's worryingly easy to look for things to buy, look for motorcycle personal protective equipment to buy on these platforms and be immediately introduced to products that are not meeting their legal requirements.
A lot of these products are selling on these platforms on the basis of low price and low price alone.
Yeah.
People think they're getting a bargain. They think they're getting CE approved protectors because that's what's being claimed. No information whatsoever about the conformity of the garment, whether it's been tested and certified. Precisely the picture we have with this suit, where we've got fake back protector, fake hip protectors. That could be prevalent on these platforms. We simply don't know. I have my suspicions.
Yeah.
What I will say in response to Amazon's statement there is, okay, they have a policy in place. They say it's proactive. Well, either it's not proactive enough or it's not working, in my opinion. These products are on sale on Amazon. Yeah. So whatever proactive steps they're taking, they're not working because products are getting through. We're not talking one or two. We're talking vast amounts of non-conforming product are available to purchase off Amazon. It's the same with eBay. It's the same with Facebook ads, whatever their policies are as well. Yeah. So it's not limited to Amazon.
No. And I should say, if any of these companies do, we've given them, we spoke to Amazon because that's where we bought this from. We haven't spoken to other companies about it at this stage because there's a limit to how long this video can be. It's probably all going to be very long.
Yeah.
But we need to look at something that we bought, and that's where we found this.
Yeah.
If there is any more feedback from any of these companies, again, do check out the article on bikesocial.co.uk where we can keep this conversation going and hopefully help the person who matters at the end of all this, the consumer.
I have a suggestion
riders.
for these platforms, and that is whenever the keywords are used for a listing, motorcycling or motorcycles or motorbikes in combination with jackets or pants or suits or gloves or gears or boots.
Very often the word protective.
And very often the word protective maybe, yeah. But if any of those keywords are in there, individually or collectively, then surely it can't be beyond the capabilities of their IT personnel to create a banner that comes up on screen when you go to view the listing that gives a link to information.
Yeah.
And for example, it could be a link to the Federation of European Motorcyclists Association's advice on buying online.
Yeah.
Quite a brief, but a very detailed and excellent piece.
Yeah.
Or even to some of your own work on Bike Social.
And I did send those to the media relations team at Amazon to try and give a bit of background because I realised that it's very clear in my head what was going on here, and obviously you're one of the leading experts in this. But to somebody outside of motorcycling in the whole market, it was a bit, I said, okay, here's some background reading. I think that would be a start.
It's something that it's got to be within their capabilities to provide that sort of banner.
Yeah.
Read this before making your purchase, or information here on buying motorcycle clothing online, however they want to phrase it. A suggestion to them. What do you think, Amazon, eBay, Facebook ads?
So, of course, we also contacted Eviron Leathers. Shahid Mahmood got straight back to me. He said, "Hello John, we have recently inquiries from Amazon's safety compliance team and a third party from Europe DE regarding the safety of all our motorcycle gears to which we have satisfied to European standards under EU directive for PPE. As a member of professional body myself, I always sourced products from authorised suppliers. The answer your member had was a misunderstanding by my colleague which caused quite a commotion. Please find reply to your questions concerns below. All our products have CE approved protectors tested and verified by a recognised independent body. We raised the issue with CE protectors manufacturer and they have provided us declaration of conformity and reports to prove that the protectors are in compliance with CE standards. We are not only checking proper CE marking with each batch, but also getting reports from tannery to make sure leather used is in compliance with chemical testings. Our suppliers are authentic, and their declaration of conformity gives us confidence that all our products are in compliance. But if any customer has unmarked protector, we would love to replace with level 1 protectors free of cost. We as a young brand are working closely with our manufacturing partners. Most of the time we do stock items, but sometimes have to arrange direct from overseas, which has its own drawbacks, but we are working to improve that side as well, so customers don't have to go through customs clearance and any ambiguity of value declaration issue. As mentioned in the start, as a professional body member, I believe in quality products and full customer satisfaction. To support our statement, we have recently done our leather testing independently, not only for chemicals EN 17092-2, EN 13688-2013, but also EN 17092-2, 2017, tear, burst and seam strength. Now, I did go back to them asking for copies of those certificates, declaration of conformities. We haven't had them back in time for this filming. What do you make of that?
Fine words, talks the talk, but the back protector is not a conforming product. Whatever declaration of conformity their impact protector supplier provided for both the back protector and the hip protectors, well, false statements were made in that declaration, because that is not what was fitted to this garment. It was not a conforming back protector. As we've shown, it failed at less than 40% of the standard requirements, and the hip protector similarly failed significantly.
Yeah.
So a lot of the focus there is on the impact protectors, and that's where we found in our assessments that the biggest issue lies.
Yeah.
And they really do need to get on top of that. If his words are genuine, if he's striving to improve, then he needs to sort this out. And of course, John, when you took delivery of this suit, the customs declaration gave a value of $65, and that they were a sample of merchandise, not a commercial transaction, which had actually occurred. So you didn't have to pay import duty on the suit, and you didn't pay the £43 VAT on top of the £215 purchase price. Yeah. Now, of course, when you start adding in import duty and VAT, which should be charged on this suit, again, you're starting to get up into the realms of the prices charged by the brands which are meeting their legal obligations, and they're putting proper impact protectors in, they're testing and certifying their garments, and they're paying their tax.
Now, we were going to talk about other examples we've seen, and there's a great one on the Bike Social Test Team page.
FIRW Gear.
FIRW Gear.
Yeah,
Asked to join, so I
Gear.
thought this might be interesting. Allowed them to join, and they started trying to sell some of their products. And the great thing was, because most of the people on that team are quite passionate about this, they got bombarded with questions. Now, we won't go too much into depth of it here. I'll say in that article, if you click on that article, we'll send you on a link to that where you can read the full thing. And it's a good insight into how these companies work on platforms like Facebook, isn't it? Because they're directly selling things. And we'll put a lot of other examples that you've been seeing, and they're just never ending, aren't they?
It's rampant.
Yeah.
I've been onto Facebook groups. In the last couple of years, what I've noticed is a lot of focus by the manufacturers in Sialkot, Pakistan, on direct selling to competition riders and track day enthusiasts. They're offering made-to-measure suits at very attractive prices. Yeah. None of these products appear to have been tested and certified. I've questioned a number of them. When I do, I get blocked and my comments get removed. That's standard operating procedure for companies who I believe are selling illegal products.
Yeah.
If they've got nothing to hide, engage in the discussion. If they haven't done it yet, well, they can get on and start testing and certifying. But to me, a block and a removal of information that other consumers may find useful, that's an indication of a lack of intent.
Yeah. A lot of these as well are ripping off trademarks. Some of the examples you've sent me are showing Triumph kit. They're clearly Triumph press shots. They're very high quality, great Triumph shots. We cannot say for certain, but these are not Triumph sellers. We cannot say for certain, but I'd be very surprised if that was a product you received. There's a lot of damage to brands, obviously. It's easy to find these leathers with Dainese branding, Alpine Stars, and
yes.
or Red Bull sponsors, Suzuki.
Arlen Ness, I've seen.
Yeah.
I've even seen Ace Cafe, London.
Yes.
Several advertisements for merchandise for them.
Yeah.
And it's not from Ace Cafe. And Ace Cafe, I'm pretty convinced, they can tell us if we're wrong, they won't be getting their royalty, their commission on those sales.
This is damaging all of these companies. Now, I'm conscious this is going to have been a long video, Paul, and it's like, it's not, there's a lot of people who will think, why should I care? So I guess let's address that first of all. Why should people care if they can buy something cheap? And I think we've kind of covered that, but there will be people who rightly skip to the end. Why should somebody care that this product is for sale without proper certification?
Well, I coined the concept of the 2 CEs for motorcycle clothing. Conformité European, tested, certified, CE marked, or caveat emptor, unknown quantity. This suit currently sits in the latter. It's an unknown quantity. We've established some understanding of what it's capable of doing. But the testing and certification regime is there to give the motorcyclists information about what it is they're looking to buy. That's all I've ever been about, right since the early 1980s when I first started getting involved in standards and accreditation marks and motorcycle kit. It's about saying to the consumer, here are your choices in the market.
Yeah.
You can either go for something that is a known quantity, it has an established minimum level of performance, or a higher level, or a highest level, or don't know what you're getting for your money with this one.
Yeah.
That's the choice the consumer has, and I'm happy for the consumer to have that choice.
Yeah.
The PPE regulation has taken choice away from manufacturers, importers, distributors, retailers, because now all motorcycle kit has to be tested by law. What I'm seeing on the online platforms is a race to the bottom in terms of cost.
Yeah.
Someone comes in with a suit at £250. So the only advantage another company potentially has is lower price. So they come in at £230. And I've seen motorcycle suits advertised online, on social media, or on one of the online e-commerce platforms as little as £180. Now,
Surely
something
you can't make it.
Well, we've seen with this suit, something has to give. And in this suit, it's a poor quality lining that you can rip by hand very easily. It's a fraudulent back protector, a fake, that fails at less than 40% of the standard requirements. And it's a hip protector that passes through almost 3 times as much force to the hip joint as the standard permits. Something has to give. And that, as you get lower and lower prices, that's where the economies are being made by the suppliers.
It feels to me like this suit is a bit of an indicator of that teetering point of the race to the bottom, because there's actually many parts of that suit that aren't bad. And I think it's showing that this company actually has the potential to make some good certified kit. I should say that you and I both have no benefit to recommending anything, be it any brand. And Bike Social, we have some adverts on there, not many really. We're there to promote Bennett's and membership. It doesn't matter what we're saying is good. And I'd actually quite like to be able to say, look, if you're on a very tight budget, this company, you're buying direct from the manufacturer and they're bringing it in and you're getting this level of protection. From our limited testing of this, we can see some of the protection we've got, and actually it's not that bad. But there are problems with this, and I find it difficult to believe that a company that seems to specialise in a lot of motorcycle kit wouldn't understand the law. Maybe there's a bit of misunderstanding, maybe it's lying, but there appears to be dishonesty in what's being sold here. If they were to certify their kit and ensure that the person buying it knew what they were getting, knew that it reached a certain safety standard, had proper protectors in it, there's a legal requirement, do you think it's realistic to say that it could increase the costs by 30, 40, 50 pounds for that garment? So taking it from 215 that we paid for that to, say, 250, 260.
Well, firstly, can I say some of these companies, and as you know, as members of the Bike Social Test team will also know, I communicate with a lot of factories who are offering motorcycle clothing on Facebook ads, for example.
Yeah.
And some of them have their own interpretation of EU and UK laws, which seems to be doesn't apply to them.
Yeah.
Other factories are genuinely unaware. But of course, by the time we've had this conversation, they're fully in the picture of what the law is and that they need to comply with it.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of what you're saying about getting a garment up to spec, this factory could be doing that, should be doing that. They should be fitting legitimate back protectors and hip protectors for a start.
Yeah.
They're buying these components for a few dollars
Yeah.
in Sialkot. The price X works of an impact protector in Pakistan from the legitimate factories out there who've done the work and have the certificates. They do exist. There are a number of them and they do a good job.
Yeah.
The price is very, very cheap.
Yeah.
And this factory could buy the proper product and put it into their suit.
Yeah.
Then in terms of testing and certification, I think on their website they're talking in terms of thousands of satisfied customers. So they're not a cottage industry. They're a fairly substantial concern.
Yeah.
They have the budget to do it, and it needn't necessarily affect the retail price. So for £250, £260, it's not outside the scope of reason that they could have a properly tested and certified product on the market.
Yeah. I guess everybody's always looking for the cheapest bargain, but there does come a point where you have to say that's a cheap. You know, the cheapest brands that are legitimately certified in the UK, throughout Europe and UK, the big brand names, they are more expensive than these, and obviously there are other margins that have to be incorporated into that. There's the stores and everything, the distributors.
Well, let's just look at that, John, because you pay £215 for this suit.
Yeah.
Now, to get this suit into a reasonable condition, you've got to buy... If the consumer takes this responsibility on themselves, which I don't think it's their responsibility, but if they do, they've got to buy a proper back protector.
Yeah.
What, £20, £30?
Yeah.
Proper hip protectors if they want them. And they need the suit relining. That's going to be quite expensive to get a competent tradesperson in the UK to reline the suit. So you might be up to getting close on £300 to get this suit up to a merchantable condition, at which point you're starting to push on the door of these other brands who have had their products tested and certified.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, suits like this don't look like the bargain that the first impression gave them to be.
Yeah. So ultimately, really, this isn't something customers should have to worry about, but we're in this weird grey area at the moment. I really genuinely hope, and I'm sorry to all, other manufacturers, I really hope that their avenues do open up for people to be able to buy direct and buy proper certified gear and give people even more choice. But for now, it's a difficult area out there buying through marketplaces and social media and stuff like that. What can somebody do if they are rightly concerned that something might not be the bargain it appears to be? What can they check?
Firstly, speak to the vendor.
Yeah.
Ask the vendor, do you have a declaration of conformity for this product? If you get a quizzical response, or if they start talking about protectors only, then that is a big red flag. The product itself hasn't been tested and certified.
Okay.
Only the protectors may be conforming products, maybe, as we found in the instance of this garment. Yeah. That's the first thing. Chances are you're going to find very few companies on these platforms who have had their products tested and certified. Normally these factories, they leave that responsibility to the brands, to the importers in the West.
Yeah.
They don't see it as being their responsibility. But now they're selling direct more and more.
Yes.
They cross a line.
Yeah.
And they become the responsible party for testing and certification. Yeah. So question them. If you don't get the answers that you're expecting, look elsewhere. Yeah. Look at the Federation of European Motorcyclist Associations' advice on buying online. Yeah. Read the articles that you, John, have published on Bike Social. There's lots of information there. To avoid making a costly error, do your research. If at the end of all that you're still fine with purchasing a product, even though the manufacturer may be supplying it to you illegally, you don't legally have to wear CE marked kit. Yeah. It's your choice still. Yes. I'm quite comfortable with that. All I want consumers to have is the information to make an informed purchase. It's their choice after that.